What's up, everybody? I'm Jesse Showalter, and welcome back to the series all about designing and coding a responsive landing page from start to finish. I'm really excited because this marks the halfway point of the project. We've actually completed all design-related portions of the project, and now we'd be moving into code. Like I said, I get really excited when I get to this portion of the project, and so often I just want to dive headfirst into a blank text editor so I can see things start coming alive in the browser. But I think it's a really smart thing to do to stop before you do that and make sure that your development environment, your setup, your workflow is really dialed in so that you enjoy the process from start to finish. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be setting up our development environment and focusing on tools and best practices so that we just crush this thing from here on out. Topics that we will be covering today will include things like setting up your text editor, getting your task runner and your preprocessors all set up, getting a GitHub repo established, those kinds of items to make sure that we are all dialed in for the entire project. With all that being said, let's jump in and get started. First things first, we need a text editor. You can use any text editor of your choice, but personally, right now I'm still using Atom. If you don't have Atom installed, it's as simple as doing a quick search for Atom, I think it's Atom.io, there it is, okay? You can download it for whatever platform you're using. In this case, I'm using Mac, so I would download it like that, and I would install it and open it up. Once you get Atom installed on your machine, it should be as simple as opening it up. If you did that, you'd get a blank screen with a blank text editor, and you'd be able to start coding right there. I think that's getting your text editor set up and installed and ready to go. The next tool you need to have installed on your computer or have running on your machine is the command line, the terminal. On an Apple, you can just open up terminal. You want to know how to change directories. You want to know how to make directories. You want to know how to type in a list and see it in long format so we can see everything in the current directory we're at. I think that's really important. If you want a little bit more information about the terminal and you feel like that's something you want to learn, I did a whole video on the 5 or 10 basic commands you should know in the terminal, so you can go check that one out. The next thing we want to do is we want to set up our GitHub repository. If you've never used GitHub, don't worry. We're going to introduce the bare minimums of it here today. And then throughout the rest of the series, we're going to be covering more and more of those basic GitHub commands, why to use it, how to use it, so on and so forth. But today, all we're really going to be doing is opening up our browser and going to GitHub. And if you don't have an account, you're going to set up an account. I happen to have an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. Once you're all logged into GitHub, we're going to want to set up a new repository. If you don't know what a repository is, it's basically like a repository or a place to store all of your code in one place. If you've never used Git as a technology or GitHub as a platform, what's really great about it is it tracks the progress of your code. And on GitHub, you're able to share that progress, share that code, and then allow people to contribute to your code at the same time. Again, we're going to be covering lots of that as we go, but this is the basics of Git and GitHub. Once you're here and logged in, you're going to want to create a new repository. We're going to create a repository for this project that we've been working on, and we're going to be calling it the Shoe App Landing Page. That's just what we're going to call it. And then we're going to give it a little title or description. The code files for the responsive landing page project. Let's do that. Okay, we're going to make it a public project. If you had an upgraded account of GitHub, you could make these private files if you wanted to. And we're going to initialize the repository with a README. It's going to be a basic empty file that allows you to write documentation. And we could add a git ignore, but we will do that a little bit later. So we're just going to go ahead and create the repository. And then you can see on your account, this is linked to my account right now, we have a new repository that has our Shoe App landing page information in it. It has one commit, like code or changes have been committed to it one time so far, and that was basically to initialize the repository and create this README markdown file that you're looking at right here. The next thing we want to do is actually set up our code on our local machine so that we can be coding locally and then pushing everything up to the GitHub repository. You can do this using the terminal or other third-party clients. For this tutorial series, we're going to be using the GitHub desktop platform to make all of those changes. To download the GitHub desktop app, you can just do a quick Google search for GitHub desktop, And it is a GUI or a graphical user interface for all of the things that you could or would do with Git. It doesn't do it all, but it does everything we're going to need for this project. So you can simply download that for Mac or Windows or whatever platform you're on, and you can see it gives you a good visual representation of what's going on. After you've downloaded and installed GitHub for Mac, which is really, really easy, it's going to ask you to plug in a couple of credentials and link it up with your actual account on GitHub. You can just come down and fire it up from your dock or from your applications folder, and you will have GitHub for Mac or Windows or whatever running on your machine. A basic tour of it in like 30 seconds is over on the left-hand side. You have a drawer filled with all the different repositories you might be working on right now. You have the different changes that have been made that are staged and ready to push up to GitHub. And then you have a history right here. This fun little timeline just kind of tracks all the changes that you've made over time. And then we'll get into the rest of it from there. I want to connect now that account or that repository that's on GitHub on my account, and I want to install it on my local machine. So to do that, we can just come over to the top left-hand side, and we can say we want to either add a project that's already on our local machine, we want to create one out of thin air, or in our case, we want to clone. So if I go to clone, you can see these are all the repos that I'm a part of, have contributed, so on and so forth. We want to look for Shoe App. Okay, you can do a quick search. I can find Shoe App and I want to clone it. So I'm going to press clone the Shoe App. I have a sites directory on my folder that I'm just going to clone Shoe App landing page into. So there that is. It's going to do that work really quick because there's like one file that weighs like nothing at all. And now that repo has been cloned and is sitting on my local machine. If I open up a new Finder window and just navigate to that sites directory, you can see I have this brand new folder that is called Shoe App Landing Page. And inside of Shoe App Landing Page, it just has that little markdown file. Okay, great. So we are ready. Anything that we put in this folder, it's going to be ready to go up. We'll be able to push it up to the repository. And later on, if we were working with other developers or other people wanting to contribute, we can pull down the freshest or newest version of the project, start coding on that, and push things back up. We'll do more of that as the series goes along. But for right now, we want to get our starting files all set up. We could just start coding everything from scratch, but to make this project really, really efficient, I've set up a kind of starter kit for everybody who wants to follow along. To get that starting kit, you just go to jesseshowalter.com/starter kit. It's a free thing for you to have and download. If you click the download button, it's going to take you to the GitHub repo that explains everything about the starting kit. This is something that I have gathered and created over the years from people who are smarter than me or my own personal preferences and put things together. But these are my starting files or my starting architecture. And I'm going to download the zip project to my downloads, and then I'm going to come over to my folder. So I'm going to open up again my sites folder and open up the Shoe App landing page. And right there you can see we have our old nothing kind of project. And I'm going to open up my downloads and I'm going to open up the Jesse Showalter starter project files. You can see there's those files inside of the Git repo. I'm going to take all of those files, except for the README file possibly, and I'm going to copy all of those over to my project. You can see that when we open up GitHub, we have our Shoe App landing page. We'll click back over to the changes, and you can see we now have 48 uncommitted changes to this project, okay? Something you might not want is you may not want inside of the build folder, and we're gonna go through this, but you may not want all of the different favicons that are in there for the different, resolutions and screen sizes, so on and so forth. So you can get rid of those if you want right off the bat. But I think the cool thing is you can see right off the bat, all of those files are in there and they're ready. GitHub is tracking the progress to our project already. We could push those up to the project if we wanted to, but we want to go through and actually check out what's inside of there. So let's do that. Let's open up Shoe App landing page inside of Atom, our text editor. I'm going to do that simply by dragging it down and opening it up on top of the icon of Atom. I'll close the other kind of files that we had open. And now you can see Atom is actually, because it's synced up with GitHub, it's actually tracking the files as they are like in the project. You can see anything that's green in this little left-hand sidebar of our text editor is actually connected to GitHub and saying, these files haven't been committed. These files have been created here locally, but they are not on the GitHub repository in the cloud. So that's really cool. Also down in the bottom right, you can see we have a track of them as well. There's 48 files that are uncommitted, and we are currently on the master branch. We haven't talked about branches, but we'll get there. So let's see what's inside of this project. Okay, the build folder is actually like the files that will be built and that you'd be able to drop then on a server, and those are the files you'll see when somebody's browsing your website. Okay, if I open that up, you can see all of those favicons, which are ridiculous. I might just get rid of those. So we'll get rid of all those favicons. Now when you open up the build folder, you will just see an index.html file, which is like a starting index.html file. We can delete all the favicon code out of there right away. So it's a little bit simpler. And you can see the like all the assets inside, like JavaScript, a few images to get you started, and the main CSS. If I was to open this project up just by double clicking it and open up my browser, it looks exactly like the landing page that you saw when downloading the project. So there's very few styles put into this, and I'll show you how to like clear it out and get going for the project. Let's see what else is inside of the starting file. Okay, so that's the build folder, but where's all that code coming from? Are we coding it right there inside of the build.css? No, we're being smart about it. We have a modern workflow. We have a source file, okay? Inside of the source file, you'll see there's no HTML. So I do all my editing of HTML files in the build folder because that's all I need it there. I don't need it in the source files. But it's the source files that matter. The source files matter because as long as you have the source files, you can recreate the build folder time and time again. If I open up, I just have a couple images, obviously. I have a little bit of JavaScript. I'm separated by the application.js or the app.js file. And then I have vendors. That's anything that's third party, like jQuery or a plugin that I want to use throughout the project. That goes into a vendors folder. And then lastly, we have our main folder, which is our Sass folder. We're going to be running Sass for the project. And if you don't have that installed, we're going to be covering that momentarily when we start installing all the dependencies that we need for the project. But first, I just want to finish talking about the architecture. Inside of our Sass project or our Sass folder, I have 6 different projects and one main.sass file. I have tools, helpers, basics, layouts, modules, and pages, okay? Tools are going to be things like my normalized CSS or anything else you want to use in there that's kind of like something that is doing its own work on the project. Helpers are going to be Sass focused kind of functions, mixins, and variables. Those are the helpers that help me throughout the project, that help me to simplify and make the project easier. Basics are, your base HTML file, anything like buttons, links, typography. I want that to be like the foundation. I could have named it foundation, but basics is less letters, so it's easier to spell. The fourth folder is the layouts folder. You can see in there I have a partial that's called nav.sass. So layouts is for any main layout portions of the site that are seen throughout, like large pieces like headers or footers or navigations or sidebars that are reused over and over and over. The fifth folder is called modules. That's where I keep small snippets of code that are reused throughout the site, like maybe a card style or a sign up form, something that reappears, but it's not main layout. It's more of a module that you can kind of plug and play throughout the layout. And then lastly, we have pages. The pages directory holds any sort of styles that are page or view or template specific. So like a home page or an about page, things that are really, really independent of everything else and only have to do with that page. I make individual style sheets for each one of those. And then I have my main.sass file. And if you open up that one, it's literally importing or pulling in all of those other 6 folders, and then it's shooting it out. We're going to build it out to the build folder to become that main.minified.css file. So now we're going to talk about dependencies, things that we need to get installed on our machine or make sure that we have up and running before we get going. If you go back to the GitHub repository for our starting project files, you'll see that one of the things we need is Node.js. So I have the link there. You can just click on Node.js. This one's as simple as tapping the operating system you're working on and following the setup wizard and getting that installed. Next thing we want to do is install NPM, which is the Node Package Manager. So you just go to npmjs.com/git-npm, or you can just do a Google search for download NPM, and you're going to get this thing right here. What it's telling us to do is come over to our terminal, and we want to type in Node, which we already have Node installed, -v, which stands for version. It's going to tell us what version of Node we're running on our machine. And then from there, we want to just install the Node package manager. To do that, you're just going to plug in this command into the terminal. After that, you should have npm installed on your machine. After that, we want to be using Sass on our project, right? We don't want to be using basic CSS. We want to pre-process with Sass. So we're going to go to sasslang.com/install. That's where you can learn more about Sass and how to use it and all of its different kind of complexities. But basically, to get it set up, you're going to open up Terminal again, right? I'm going to clear out the line that I was on, and you're going to type in npm. Now we're calling on Node Package Manager to do something for us. We're saying, what do you want it to do? We want it to install something. We want it to install globally, and we want to install it Sass globally. So once you do that, it's going to install the newest version of Sass. If you already have one running on your machine, it's just going to reinstall it and replace it. So now I have Sass running globally on my computer. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to install Gulp. Again, it's a really, really simple process. You're just going to go do a quick search for Gulp.js on the web, and you get gulpjs.com. It's going to tell you right there on the first page how to install Gulp and how to start using it. So what you need to do is say npm install Gulp, and you want to put in -CLI and then -G for global. You're going to install Gulp globally, okay? Now let's open up our Gulp file and see all that we've done. So I'm going to open up Atom again, and you can see inside of my project, we've already gone over the build and the source folder. I have a package.json file that's sitting waiting there, and it has all of the Gulp specific dependencies that the project uses. All of these packages represent something that could be installed by Node Package Manager. We can go out to the web, we can grab it using terminal and install it, but that's a lot of writing, that's a lot of work. Instead, what we want to do is follow the instructions on the project starter kit that I've created, and we want to get into our project directory, and we're going to type npm install, okay? So we're going to do that. We're going to get to our terminal right here, and we're just going to say pwd, what working directory are we currently in? We're in my user folder, Jesse Showalter. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cd into, I know that I have that sites folder. I'm going to say slash the, I think it's shoe. Is it shoe app? S-H-O. I can just press tab after I start and it'll kind of auto-complete something for me. So now I'm in the, you can see it says right here, I'm in the shoe app landing page directory, okay? So what I wanna do is I just wanna write npm install. So I'm gonna write npm install. And it's gonna go out, it's gonna read that package.json file as we speak, that's what it's doing. And it's going out and collecting all of the dependencies for the project. And you'll see over in our text editor, it's created a node modules folder. Inside it has all of those individual packages that we need. Now we should have everything we need running on our project. Now we're gonna go look at our Gulp file and see what kind of things we're gonna be doing with this task runner. What is a task runner? Why do we need one? Yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. When we open up our gulp.js file, you'll see basically a JavaScript file. That's what it is. And so if you don't write JavaScript, don't worry about it. You don't have to yet. I'm going to explain what each of these things is doing. The first thing it's doing is it's just creating a list of dependencies. I've created a group of variables. Okay, each of them has a name, and it's saying go out and require all the files related to Gulp. And then all of those other packages or plugins, whatever you want to call them, I've done the same thing. I've said in my project, I want to do some auto prefixing. So I want to require auto prefixer in the project. This all came from our package.json. So all of those things got downloaded and installed into our project. And now I'm just saying, I require those. I need those. Make sure they're accessible to me. This is a task runner, right? So it's going to do stuff for us. What kind of stuff might Gulp do for us that would be helpful? First and foremost, it's going to pre-process our Sass for us. If I look at this task, okay, I'm just going to bump the size of this code up so we can see it really clearly. If you look at this task, what it's saying is, okay, Gulp, it's saying, Gulp, I want you to do something. I want you to run a task, and I want that task to be called Sass. Okay, I want it to be called Sass, and what I want it to do, the function that I want it to do is, I want to go into this file, okay, this source file here in our project, and I want you to go into the Sass directory, and then the double kind of asterisk means any file inside of that. Go into any and every file inside of that and find any file that's called Sass, and I want you to check and make sure it's okay. That's what Plumber does. Each one of these little commands that starts with pipe is how Gulp works. It pipes at one place and then to another and then to another. It's running many multiple little things before it gets it to where you want it. So I want to pipe it and make sure it's plumbed or correctly written. Okay, I want to then pipe it over through the Sass processing, and then I want to the style of pre-processing I want the whole thing to be compressed when it's done. And then after that, I want to rename it. What do I want to rename it? I want to change the base name of it to main. Okay, I'm going to keep it that. But then I want to give it a suffix, something right after that, .min. Then after you're done renaming it, I want you to pipe the whole thing to a destination called the build folder inside the assets inside CSS. This is how Gulp works. This is why Gulp is so awesome and easy, because it's really logical. It says, I want you to do this, then that, then that, then that, then that, and then I want you to be done. And that's the task. Now, what does this do for us? What does this mean? Like, are we able to do anything with this? Well, yeah, we can open up Terminal, and I'm going to clear this out. You can see we are inside of our project folder. I can write Gulp, Sass, and it says it's using my Gulp file. It started it. It finished it after like 9 milliseconds, and now it's pre-processed everything. Did it actually? Well, let's go check and see. I'm going to put this right over here. I'm just going to squeeze this guy in. So I'm going to put my terminal over here. And I'm going to go into my build folder. I'm going to see what's in there. Okay, I'm going to close up these other directories. Here's my main.min.css. Okay, so the very bottom thing there is like Flex Video. Okay, I wonder where that's coming from. Well, it's probably coming from all these modules and pages. So here's a test. I'm going to go into my main.css, and I'm going to write something. I'm going to write background. That doesn't make any sense. How about we'll write HTML? Okay. HTML, we'll write background, and we'll do the dreaded red color. And then we'll come back to our terminal. I'm going to press up on the keyboard to repeat the previous statement. I'm going to run Gulp Sass. Okay, cool. Now let's go look at our main.css. At the very end of it, I'll use my mini-map and just drag down. We should have HTML background red. What? That's crazy. Okay, I'm going to drag it over here so you can see it done in real time. And then I'm going to go to my main Sass. Maybe I didn't mean red. Maybe I meant green. Well, I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here and run Gulp Sass again. And we should probably see this thing update to green. We missed it though. Here, so let's go back to red. I'll press save, come back to my terminal, run Gulp Sass. We're going to see the whole thing refresh from green to red. Well, that's awesome. That means that we can just write CSS using Sass, which is really convenient. You can nest your Sass, you can do variables, all sorts of fun stuff, mix-ins and functions and all sorts of stuff. And then all we have to do is come over to the terminal every time and press Gulp Sass. Well, that's cool. But you know what? Like coming over to the terminal every time, pressing Gulp Sass, then going back over to my browser, like if I was to open up, let's see, where did our project go? Let's open up in here. You can see that it changed the background down at the bottom. It changed that to red, right? So yeah, that's okay, except, I don't want to go like this. I don't want to say, oh, I wanted to change the background to green and then come over to my terminal and punch that in and let it update the CSS and then come back to my browser and refresh it to green. That's like a lot of work, like back and forth, back and forth. This task runner is supposed to do work for us, right? Well, let's make it do work for us. Let's make things a little bit easier. So let's come back over here and we'll close this. I'm actually going to delete that HTML. Well, I'll keep that HTML statement. Actually, I was going to delete that, but I'm going to keep it for example. Okay, I'm going to close my package.json on my gulp file. We've set up a bunch of other fun tasks as well. We can like minify our images and like losslessly like compress them and like make sure they look good. We're gonna like move all of our like scripts over, like all of our JavaScript that we write. We want to make sure that it's like written really, really nicely and then compressed and slammed into the build folder. Same thing. We have vendors. Anything that's outside. We don't want to have like 7, if we use like 3 or 4 different libraries or things we want to use, I don't want to have 3 or 4 different HTTP requests on my HTML page. If you don't know what that is, I'll talk about that in a second. I just want to have maybe 1, maybe 2 at the most. So I'm going to have like a source, like my main app.js, and then like some sort of vendors above it, like so it's prefixing with any jQuery or kind of like anything like that. All right. And then I don't want to keep doing it over and over. So I've written a watch task, a basic gulp watch task that says, hey, I want you to watch for changes. Anytime a change happens, use this really awesome thing called browser sync and refresh my project in the browser. And then after you're done doing that, I want you to watch each of those different like tasks that I've created. And I want you to do that. Well, how do I do that? Well, I created a default task, which is Gulp's like out of the box thing. I don't want to write Gulp SaaS, then Gulp Watch, then Gulp Vendors, then Gulp Scripts. I want to just write Gulp, and I want it to do its job, right? So that's what we've created. We said, hey, if we just type Gulp, it's going to run all of them, and it's going to watch for all those changes, and that's it. So now what we can do is instead of going back and forth, I can come over to my project, I can write Gulp, and it auto-launched the browser. Right? If we look back at our terminal, it's done all of its job. It's processed everything we wanted it to. Then it ran the default command. It created a local server for us using this awesome thing called browser sync. And then it's given us a URL that we can use in our browser here and then also on our mobile device. So as you refresh, it refreshes everything. I can have an iPad open, an iPhone, my computer, and everything's going to refresh at the same time. Also, when I scroll, everything is going to scroll at the same time so I can see it. And then after that, it's serving up the files from that folder and it's reloaded the browsers and it's watching. So now if I come over and change this from green to maybe let's go pink, you can see the change made in the terminal and without me touching anything, it refreshed it in the browser. Or I can change this to orange, bam, it refreshed the browser. And now we can see all of our changes made in real time. That's awesome. Well, now I feel like we have our project set up. I want to make sure that we save the status of our project as it is right now. Before we get there, though, I feel like I probably want to like get rid of all of that stuff that's on the page, like currently on the page. So I'm gonna get rid of this like HTML statement and press save. Got rid of that. That's awesome to see it refresh. And then next thing I want to do is I'm going to close this CSS file because we don't care about that anymore. Our Gulp file's working just fine. That's working just fine, no problem. I want to get all of this, let's see. I'm going to get all of this HTML out of there. I'm going to save that, and it refresh it and give me a blank page. That's kind of nice. But I'm still getting some sort of weird styling. Well, if you want to start from a blank project, all you got to do is come into this page.home, and you just have to delete all the styles that are in there, and you should get almost everything has been updated. Okay, inside of my base.sas file, I think I was using a background. I have a comment that just says delete the background to apply your own style. And as soon as I do that, I have an absolute blank page and we can start coming in and writing our own stuff. Like we can just get rid of this section even. Let's write an H1 that says shoe app coming soon. Okay, there it is. Our shoe app website is coming soon and our project is all set up. We have everything installed we need. Now the last thing we need to do is just push this thing up to the GitHub repo and we'll be all set. I'm going to open up our GitHub for Mac and it says we have 16,569 uncommitted changes. Oh my goodness. Well, that's because there are some files in there that should not be there, right? Like we don't need to upload our node modules folder. Here's what you want to upload to the browser. Whatever somebody else needs to download it and get the project going in the same way that you have it going. They can get all those node modules. They don't need to get them from you. They can get them from the interwebs, right? So we don't want to put those things in there. What we really want to do is we want to create something that's called a gitignore file. And we should get a really awesome, where did our, aha. Go to gitignore.io and we can plug in all the things that we have running on our system to make sure that Git ignores those files, doesn't try to upload those to the cloud. So we're going to say I'm on a Mac. Ooh, I'm on Mac OS. Why you want to make sure you put that inside of Mac OS is because if you open up Atom, you'll see these like .ds_store files. That's an operating system specific thing for Mac. So I'm going to put that one in. I'm also going to put, we're using Node. We're using, what else? We're using SAS because there's like a SAS cache usually that it caches it in the browser somehow. I think that should be it. We're using SAS, we're using Node, and we're on a Mac OS X. Okay, cool. I'm going to press create right there. It's going to give me this gitignore file. So I'm going to copy all the stuff there, and then I'm going to come back into my text editor, and I'm going to create a new file by pressing Command N. I'm going to paste all of this in there, and I'm going to save it as .git ignore. And I want to make sure that when I save it, it's actually right here in my main directory. I don't want to put it inside of somewhere. I want to put it in my main directory, .git ignore. And I'm going to save that. Yes, I want to use the dot at the beginning. And what you'll see is when we go back to GitHub, it's slimmed it down from being like 1,500 files or 15,000 files to being these just these 29 committed changes, uncommitted changes right now. Our git ignore file is in there. So right now all we're doing is uploading our build folder, our gulp file, our package stuff, our JSON files, and then our source folder and all the changes that we've made. I feel pretty good about that. So using the GitHub desktop app, I'm just going to write a little summary of what we've done. Installed base files, and then let's put a description. Starter project, what else do we do? Cleared all the default styles out. We got gulp running, and what else did we do? Installed everything. So I'm just going to say at the end of it, project ready. Okay. So I have the subject for it, and then I have a little comment below, and you can kind of put whatever you want. Like, don't write a journal entry about, about how the park was or anything that day, but just describe the project. And then what we're going to do is we're going to commit this to the master branch of the project. We're going to talk a lot more about GitHub in the future episodes and how to use it, because that's going to be part of our learning process. But you're going to see as I commit this to the master, there it is. It's now staged and committed there. And then the last thing we want to do is just sync. Okay, so those changes have been committed and synced up to the master repo. And now you can see it changed just visually. Like if I just click back here, we have the first dot. What did it say? It said that's the initial commit. And then after that, we installed the base files. And now currently we are here with no committed changes. So I can look back at the history as well. There it is, initial commit, installed the base files. You can see all the things that were added or removed. And now if we made any sort of changes, look, nothing's green and our directory is on the left-hand side. So I can close that. And if I wanted to say like shoe app, oh, whoops, those should be together like that. Oh, all of a sudden my build folder lit up and it's saying that needs to be like pushed up. And I'm saying, maybe I want my background. It probably won't work there. Let's put body. Yeah, let's do inside the body. We'll just say we want the body and the background color to be maybe like gray. So like CCC right there. See how it's changed in our browser? Okay, awesome. So it's changed in our browser. And now when we come back, we see those changes taking effect inside of GitHub. So now we can just say playing with background color and say BG gray. Dude. You probably don't want to like really write dude inside of your GitHub comments or descriptions, but I'm going to do it. Push it up to the master and sync it. And bam, we have just pushed everything. Now you'll see when we go to our GitHub repos, I'm going to go to my profile, go to my repositories, and I have this shoe app landing page repository that's been created. And look at that. I have all of my files that I've pushed up. I can see all the different commits that have happened. Playing with background color, if I click on that, BG gray, dude. And that's it. Our project's set up. I think we have everything up and running that we need to. If you're interested in starting something from scratch or working on a project just by yourself locally and you don't want to use GitHub, you can download that starting file package that I've created. I'll put the link down in the description. If you'd like to follow along with me and actually kind of participate in the project on GitHub, feel free to go to the link that I put down in the description for this GitHub repository. Follow it, fork it, pull it down and clone it to your own machine and then start working on it there. Maybe as we're going along and we're working on the project, you feel like you'd like to add or contribute to the project as we're going. I can pull in all of your pull requests or the suggestions that you have. We'll cover that in the next video. But any suggestions you have, there's a way for me to pull those in and have you actually contribute on the project. That would be super awesome. So that's it. I think we're in a pretty good place. I'm really excited to have gotten to this point and set up our environment, and even more excited to get to next week where we start actually building out the site and having you guys participate with me on GitHub to make sure that this thing is rocking. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. I hope your setup went really, really good, and I hope you're getting ready for code. I'll see you guys in the next one.